wonderful award earlier today. It's a great honor to accept this in the name of NREL. What I want to do is give a little bit perspective on an international level, and the chairman asked, so what's happening in the United States? So I also want to address this a little bit, and then I show you an output where we feel that we still have to continue to drive innovation forward. And I think this will be very critical, and I want to give you a thought experiment, what happened a couple of years ago. So first of all, I'm at NREL. NREL is the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. We are in Golden, Colorado, outside of Denver, on the Rocky Mountains. We are about 1,700 people working on renewable energy efficiency from solar, wind, bio, and also the efficiency side. We have world-class facilities, and also a lot what you're seeing on this building here on grid integration, and I also want to come back to this one in a second. We're also working in 90 different nations, a lot of work on many different countries, and also one I want to highlight here, work with we just basically published, and if you're interested, we published this grid integration study, which was done here in India. If you're interested in finding this report, if you go to our website, on www.nrel.gov and then India grid integration, you can see the study where we modeled the grid for a whole year in India at 175 gigawatt renewable energy. And again, Minister Gyal also gave a wonderful video there, so if you're interested, check out this website. I think it's a very good study showing where India is going. When you look at this and why we're all here, we all know that we're having to do something on our climate. We're seeing an increase in CO2. Now we are above 400 ppm already. Means we need to work towards this deep decarbonization. At this point, I think it's important that it's not just the energy sector. We have to look into this, and for example, in the US, more than half of the CO2 emissions come from industrial and the transportation sector. So it's not enough just look at the energy generation sector. We also need to look at the transportation side and specifically also the industry side. And that's a lot of challenges ahead of us to keep the 2 degrees. Because again, if we even miss half of the transportation sector, we will not make our 2-degree goals. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. In addition to this, that we predict about a 56% increase in energy consumption by 2040. So just keeping the status quo is not enough. We need to increase the energy production in the years to come. What happens? In 2016, for example, you're seeing already a change in the fuel type. In the US, we saw a change from coal over to natural gas and also an increase in renewables. And now when you plot the lines to come, this will even be a further change, even in the US, and the change is happening fast. So renewable generation goes up significantly. When you plot 16 again, the curve is going much faster than what we've seen before. Why do we seeing this? And this is a slide showing you that the big increase in the renewables coming by the decrease in cost. So a land-based wind is decreased by 41%, distributed PV 54%, utility scale PV 64%, battery costs 73%, so this was a big surprise. We're seeing battery costs going deep so fast, and this is now even accelerating more. LED bulbs is the best example. These days, who's buying regular bulbs anymore? The cost came down by over 90%. So the decrease in costs will generate this increase in deployment of this technology. When you plot this, land, for example, in wind, so 2016, 226 terawatt hours, or 5.55% of all electricity generated in the US is now wind. When you look at solar, 50 gigawatts of installed photovoltaic in 2016, and this curve is increasing even further. So how far can we go with today's technology? And that's a big question, because when you look at this, the resource potential, the technical potential, the economic potential, and the market potential. So when you look at the resource potential, in the US and also here in India, we have seen the numbers before, we have a lot of potential there. I always like to show that in 2015, the US generated 1,168 gigawatts of electricity. If you look at this, how much of solar did we use of this potential? It was 0.0073%. So it's not even scratching the surface there. So there's a lot of potential there. The question is, do we have all the technology to deploy and harvest the resources we have? A couple of years ago, NREL, we have done already a study that yes, even with this technology, we can achieve 80% renewable by 2014. This was the study down there, by 2050. So we have the technical capabilities. But now we have seen an increase in technology. The cost came further down. And again, now the goal is even to go beyond the 80%. And this is also where we still have some technical challenges ahead of us. On a global scale, and this is again a slide from Arena, you've seen this before, we're seeing an increase in renewable deployment across all different sectors. When you look especially in solar, there's almost like this logarithmic curve coming up now. More and more solar is getting deployed, and I will show you in a slide that we might run into some bottlenecks very soon. When you compare what we installed in 2015, there's 47 gigawatts of new photovoltaic panels were installed on a global scale. And in a very, very conservative comparison, so this is about 10 average-sized nuclear reactors in 1 year. If you plot already now what we've done in 16, the number is up, and now 17 is even up from 16. So you're seeing that when you compare this to nuclear power plants, we've done a lot of really interesting work in this area. Similar trend for wind. So wind is increasing steadily, and again, there's some studies done, but by 2030, cost of wind will come down by another 30%. So it's already in many areas the cheapest way to produce electricity, and this will be even cheaper by 2030. Globally, an economic opportunity, so 9.8 million people working in renewable energy. We've heard this in a couple of speakers prior that they say, well, we need to get manufacturing up. That's correct. But when you look, for example, in solar, at least in the US, I don't know what the numbers here are in India, but in the US, most of the solar jobs, over 300,000 people in solar, it's not necessarily in manufacturing, it's in installation. And in the US, when you compare this, so a person who is installing solar rooftop panels makes about $26 an hour, whereas a manufacturing worker makes $15. So it's very good paying jobs. Also now for us in the US, very important, moving more and more into rural America. So of course, the manufacturing side, the supply chain is important, but the beauty in solar is also that a lot of jobs are in the installment of the solar panels. A lot of countries signed up to be 100% renewables by 2050. So the list is growing, and so this is very exciting and encouraging for the future. Another very important point, and this is also especially important right now for us in the US, that a lot of companies pledge to go to 100% renewable energy. This is 62 companies who pledged this. And when you look at this list, it's also important to see that this are many US companies, and they have not changed the goals. They continue to drive towards this 100% renewable energy. Also interesting right now in all the discussions what you've heard in the US, that a lot of states continue to drive their goals forward. Oregon wants to go to 50% by 2040, California 100%, Hawaii 100%, Vermont 75%, New York 50%, DC area to 50%. So these states continue to drive the goal and the deployment of this technology forward, which is very important in my opinion right now. So what is driving the momentum? Government investments, private sector investments, investments in general, advancement in technology, all this linked together continues to drive the deployment of renewable energy. But there's also a point, and this is why I want to highlight in these pictures. When people ask, how quick can we go? Are we going too fast? Are we going too slow? What triggers fast changes in technology? I like this picture to show you. When you look at this in 1900, this is a picture in New York. On the left side, you're seeing at Easter, there was one car in this picture. So the similar picture taken 13 years later, and it's completely changed. There's a big traffic jam happening also in Easter, and in this picture you find one horse carriage. So it took 13 years to go from all horse carriage to all cars in 13 years. What triggered this tremendous shift? It's a game, it's a step function, how I call it. It's not that there was one horse which was a little bit faster than the other horse. No, it was a completely transition in the technology. And I predict that we're having many of these kind of trends coming. One, again, is also, again, in transportation, interestingly. When you look at this, that you are seeing this fast movement of electrification in combination, at least in the US, what we see with autonomous driving. We predict that this is another game changer, as we have seen here, from a horse to a car. So, give you a solar, where we need also a transition to keep up with the trend. If you ask this, what can we do to achieve 10 terawatts by 2030? You very quickly realize that we have a manufacturing problem. So this list shows you the list when you go by 30% of world power by 2030. So the steep curve you're seeing on the circle there, this is how we have to produce solar panels. We cannot do this. So we physically cannot produce enough solar panels if we want to achieve this. So we need new technology. One of the ideas of what's happening there, and this is a list of the research going on now also in our laboratory, but the idea is you have to combine the new materials research with the manufacturing process. And only if you combine the two can we come up with new ways, a game changer, a step function in this technology. One of the potentials there is, in our opinion, perovskites. When you look at some of the analysis done, it can be the cheapest way to produce solar panels, which is shown here with a circle. So, but the question is, why are we so excited about this? So when you look at this, and this is all the slides of famous NREL slide, where we're plotting all the best research cell efficiencies. In the circle, you're seeing how perovskites is in a steep upcline over the last couple of years, now reaching about 22% efficiency. But the goal is in this one. Now, if you combine this with new manufacturing technologies, you can really revolutionize and create a step functions. So we've done this thought experiment. When you go to perovskites, you can create a way how you produce newspapers, the same way you're printing on a roll-to-roll process, how you do newspapers. So we took the 5 most reliable or most distributed newspapers in the US and asked how much surface do they produce, and then translate this over to a new solar cells with an efficiency of 15% on perovskites. So then to create 25 terawatts of solar panels would create or would use 3 years of this technology, versus current technology is 170 years. So suddenly you would create the surface what you need to create 25 terawatts of solar power in 3 years versus 170 years. That's a game changer, and that's why we're so excited about combining materials like perovskite with new manufacturing processes. And then there's storage. Storage is a very interesting field. We have seen batteries now increasing momentum. They're getting cheaper by the year, so to speak. So very soon we will have electric cars being cheaper than combustion engines. It becomes because the technology in battery storage will go down so much. But that's not enough. We need to look at all different storage technologies, every way from pumped hydro to compressed air to hydrogen to chemical storage. So storage, or the transformation of excess electricity to hydrocarbons to carbon-carbon bonds, will be the big challenge for the years to come. That's why we believe that hydrogen might come back, not necessarily in transportation, but as a shifting in products from electrons to hydrocarbons, and this will go potentially through hydrogen. And that's why we believe hydrogen can be a so-called platform technology in the future. And with this, what is the best way to predict the future is to creating it, and that's again what we need to do to save our planet. Thank you very much.